So by now, most of us are probably able to recognize a kind of formula. There is an awakening or a movement with emptiness and expansion. Something for a moment or maybe for a period of time is dissolved, and then there's a movement back into form. And in this movement back into form, there can often be some kind of a crisis. Maybe for the first time we see a fear, we experience a fear which we didn't know was still there. Or we revisit an old pain which we didn't know we hadn't got over yet, or maybe we'll never get over. Or we move into various states. These are all forms of how it feels to be here, which don't have that same clarity, that same aliveness, awakeness, but have that more drugged feeling. Or we move into exaggerated caricatures of ourselves, ego structures, but it's no longer comfortable. Almost exaggerated, like a caricature blown up, that we're not comfortable with anymore. It's almost like what was subtle and comfortably part of who we are becomes like this big monster with the nose is 10 times longer, and it's still part of us, but this is the separation process. So this last part of the formula, coming back into form, is what the aspect of inner growth which tends to be called self-realization. You're realizing the self which is not who you are. And you realize it through experiencing it. But experiencing it in a sense of not unconsciously carrying it, but experiencing it in a way as something with a conflict. It's seen. It's not comfortable. It's not at peace. And in this process of realizing it, it's sometimes becoming it and releasing it, sometimes just becoming aware of it. And it dissolves in the awareness. In this process we become more free. We become more free of aspects which we didn't know were there in the first place, but retrospectively you can recognize that they were limiting us. So, of course, with every movement into the unknown, the unexperienced, and this is where emptiness is moving through, beyond the normal boundaries of the self we believe ourselves to be. Every movement has this kind of response because we rise again into form, into the human aspect of being here. We can't stay invisible. It's part of this planet. We rise again in a body in the first instance. The moment we begin to rise again in a body, we hit right there in the hara, the male-female split. You're a man or you're a woman. At first this is like incredible limitation. It's the birth of the other sex. That which you are not and you will never be in this lifetime, physically. In a natural, organic way. You could have an operation, but it's... All the time, what's there, from this freedom of emptiness, is this pure freedom which is there in unity. There's this unity. Whatever it is, beyond all the personhood, beyond all the feelings and emotions, and beyond all the stories, whatever this which I am is, beyond all that, is identical in the other. It's the same. Sometimes it's just a little glimpse. It's the same one looking back at you. And sometimes it can be longer than a glimpse. This doesn't get lost as we rise into form, this unity. Even if we forget it, and we get very caught in the idea of others and me, it's still not lost. Something has fallen away into that, and it feels true. But in coming out of emptiness, we move into the area of being. And literally the heart of individuality in unity. My qualities, his qualities, my experiences, his experience. And the total truthfulness and clarity of unity is such that we want to find that unity here also. It can be totally devastating to come with a vulnerability and openness to describe something you've experienced on the level of being, and to have the other completely not recognize it. Oh yes, I know that happened to me, like this, like this, like this. No, but it's not the same. Oh, it is, I know what you're talking about. But it's not the same. For 1,000,000,001 totally obvious reasons, it's not the same. Whatever it is, even if it wasn't exactly the same experience, it's not the same. It's a different form. It's a different time, it's a different place, it's a different process. But the unity is the same. It's untouched. But the ability to connect in being is already moving into difficulty. Experience is not the same. At the same time, that in unity it's totally at one. So what we have here is the first layer of unity in form. And this is often referred to as this dimension of interbeing, interconnectedness, interdependency.
What are you
interbeing
about? The emptiness? Or
no, as there is a rise into form and manifestation through being, we're talking at a very pure level, from the heart, what comes forward, if we are totally free, but it comes forward anyway, even if there's a difficulty or a struggle around it, is something which is called interbeing, the interdependency, the interconnectedness of us all. In emptiness, we experience the collapse of separation. In emptiness, it's possible to experience unity. There's nothing else happening. But we rise again into our female or male form, into our individual bodies, into where we are here right now. And we meet our being. Even our essential being. The unity is still there, and it's moving through interbeing, what people call interbeing. Interbeing comes out of the realization that still there is nothing private. It's not your qualities. It's not your feelings. It's not your emotions. It's not anybody's. It's all a web which is utterly dependent on itself. Every particle of the web, every thread connected to every other thread. So at first this sounds very conceptual. It's easier to allow in a way that I'm breathing in Eyal's air and he's breathing out my air, and that the hydrogen in my body is in vibration with the hydrogen in his body, and that the electromagnetic fields of my mind are synchronizing all the time with his mind, whether or not I'm conscious of it. That the iron in my body is of the family of iron, which is in all of your bodies. That the water, which is 70% of all of our bodies, is the same water of the oceans and of the raindrops and of the vapors and of the outer precincts of the universe and in the earth and in the plants. This is easier to accept. Maybe the physical interbeing, the total interconnectedness of us all physically. These bodies are recycled corpses and trees and ash and who knows what from where. Just these are the elementary particles of everything we know ourselves to be physically. Stardust is a romantic way to say it. We're made of the dust of stars. All the same. This is easier to accept. But when it comes to the layer of being, that if somebody is in pain in this room, we're all also in pain. That if somebody's pregnant, in a way we're all also pregnant. That if there is a longing or a fear or a struggle, that we're all responding, reacting, part of this longing, fear, struggle. That we're all manifesting through the same light. We're all seeing through the same light. It's the same light.
No.
Light. It's the same awareness. It's not like one of us has a state of pure awareness and the other's not. This is an artificial separation. It's the same. It's the same conditioning and mental pathways collectively. The same patterns of action and reaction, acceptance and rejection. We didn't get free of that in the emptiness. It's still here. But we have the opportunity for it not anymore to be personal. The person has the self, the illusion of self, the self which is keeping us not free, has the possibility to surrender. Surrender its specialness. To surrender its love. Its private love. To surrender its private pain. Not to surrender the pain, to surrender the belief that it's private. To surrender its fears, which are dancing with the love.
I don't understand the surrender. Only in the being we can surrender?
In emptiness, in a way, it's already surrendered. In emptiness, when we really begin to perceive through emptiness, we are already not moving through form. We move through form in a very, very pure way, but at a certain stage, we need to take an individuality. You need to teach, you need to heal, you need to make an appointment, you come into form. And coming into form, the whole issue of private and shared, the whole issue of separation, is awoken again. Awake again.
Okay.
The unity is there, but the unity isn't going to change anything. The unity is there. So how is this unity there when there's me and there's you? And we're having a conversation. So here is the possibility to move into all the old patterns again. There's me and there's you, and the separation is absolute. The unity becomes conceptual. There's also the possibility to surrender the me within the understanding that everything that we're feeling or thinking or putting forward is shared. The moment it's spoken, the moment it's expressed, if not before, it's shared. It's something which is happening, but not me and not you, we're not the happening. It's not private. The moment I speak to you, whatever voice is coming out of me is not mine anymore. It doesn't even sound like me. There's no privacy in it at all. It's something resonating through me. It's as much yours and as much everybody else's, or the universe's, as it is mine. Even as I'm trying to explain something, the thoughts are not mine. Something is moving through me. I don't know what I'm going to say before I speak. It's not private, it's not planned, it's not controllable.
It's from unity?
It's something moving through the synergy of all of us. And it's not me, it's the same for everybody. This is the surrendering. Surrendering the belief that it can be private and it is mine and it identifies me. This is the process of surrendering and the process of moving more into the freedom of interbeing. It's really a freedom. It's a freedom, and at the same time, and almost inseparably, it is a most beautiful responsibility.
What the responsibility? It's not me that is killing this person now. It's something that flows through me.
The killing of this person now, anywhere, is our responsibility.
Our.
Yeah. You just flip it back to the person. It's not me, it's...
To what I surrender.
I'll explain. Is that okay? I take over. I just repeat what Georgi said. You have to follow the line of thoughts. Then it's very easy to understand. So, if we move ourselves in a state of emptiness, then a way of saying it, emptiness is not empty, but of a separate self. Means that you're in unity with everything, because in emptiness you don't, if you're deeply in emptiness, you don't identify with any form. Any form is just alive, free inside you and around yourself. And with this non-identification, unity comes forward. Emptiness is basically moving through everything. There is not a separate self. In this, basically what you're doing is letting go of any personal individual form. It's a deep state of meditation or emptiness, perception to emptiness, whatever you say, but you let go of any individual form. Then you go home, or you're sitting meditating in your klinika, and there's a knock on the door, and there's your wonderful daughter. And your wonderful daughter doesn't need an empty vehicle. Your wonderful daughter needs Abba. Abba is a form, is one of the forms you are. So you move back into form. So in the first movements back into form, what's happening is that the whole area of M is coming forward. I am, being. And if you look to being, there is a deep conflict around being. It's like, you know, what Georgi put in between is the whole separation between male and female, which is part of it. But then we move into being, and there is this kind of conflict around being. Being an individual, on one side, because you are unique in your Abba-ness. There is no Abba like you are. But at the same time, also, on the other side, we are all, the unity never goes. We are all still connected, also on the level of being. And I try to explain this. So when you give form to yourself, it's not the Abba you are. It's the Abba of your daughter. Because when you give form to your son, a different Abba is coming forward. This is not exactly the same Abba. When you give form to your other daughter, another Abba is coming forward. They look like each other, but they're slightly different. So, if I look to Dodo, I am the Abba of Dodo, which is a different Abba as the Abba of Deirdre. Because there is a different need, there is a different interbeing. Togetherness in how we give form to a certain aspect, quality of ourselves. And this is basically happening all the time. We can place somebody in a position. Let's make no one president. So if we make no one president, if you just think in your mind that we are making no one president right now. So in making him a president, what we do is that we kind of are in the level of interbeing, we are investing something in no one. You can say this is a projection, but in this layer we're investing something in it, in him, which makes him a president. You recognize that this is positive and negative. These are all kind of projections, but the investment, no one will feel. He will respond to it if he says, yes, I am the president. You recognize what I'm talking about?
And none of it can exist by itself. It really can't exist by itself. You know, no one cannot be president without people. He's utterly dependent on the people to be president of.
I need you guys.
The father cannot be a father without a daughter. The daughter can't be a daughter without a father. So you are utterly existing in form, in total codependency. It's totally interdependent, which means you are in her and she is in you on this level of being. They can't be separated.
You cannot separate.
You can reject your father as much as you like. He's still inside you and you're in him. The separation is an illusion. It's a struggle with an illusion to create an illusion and sustain an illusion.
So, in any way, how we give form, there is an interaction. It's always form related to. If we think about, going to our mother-in-law tonight for Shabbat dinner, already we start to interact with our mother-in-law and we already think what form we want to give. Tonight I want to be friendly because I'm in a course, and peaceful and patient. I will not snap. I'll be so holy that she will not believe it. You see the whole interaction already happening. So the form which is coming forward is an interaction. So you go into the house and the first thought which is going into your mother-in-law is, oh, not him again. And you will fall back to the same pattern. You recognize? So in this, with our attitudes, with our thoughts, on the level of thinking, in the level of giving form in whatever way, we are responsive. We're automatically of service, responsive to our environment. There is such a deep level of interbeing in a way that we think that we've got our own private thoughts. They're responsive. There is an ocean of thoughts we share. And this ocean of thoughts we share is structured inside us in a special moment according to need. And this need can be egoic need. This can be need which is of service. This can be need in that we really, really, really need to have some negative thoughts about Moshe. Because Moshe needs to be rejected. Because Moshe is walking around with a big billboard, I am studying rejection right now. Please reject me.
It's like that inside.
It's like that. We're responsive to each other. We reject in the other what we reject inside ourselves. So what don't we reject in ourselves? And some people are much more easy to reject. Why are they more easy to reject? Because they play out exactly what we reject inside ourselves. And we're responsive with it, without even being so aware. But we're just responsive towards it. He dares to do this and this and this and this. We should teach him a lesson. And you can put it in the whole psychology of being safe, unsafe. And the moment you put it into the psychology, you come into social structures, in society, interbeing. How we use language, what we learn at school, our attitude to certain things is tribal. It's in groups, in families. Interbeing. So the moment you wake more, that you say, okay, this precious self, this precious identity I have. We try to put our identity as something which is stagnant, always the same, and we think it has to be like this. It's a fucking illusion. Nobody is always the same. Nobody loves his child always the same. This is a process of change, a process of opening more, opening less. It's a process. It's moving all the time. It's changing all the time. It's not stagnant. And this process, when you look to this process of being in the moment, every moment is different. It's our response to life which is different, and the response from life to us which is different. It's a state of interbeing. So from this perspective, if somebody gets killed, because a person comes to a killing activity. And I'm not saying that it's not important to put borders there, but that something gets killed, that somebody got killed has an influence on all of us. If somebody gets killed in Tel Aviv in a bus, we all feel less safe. We all say we should do something about it. It's not separate.
Did it really influence someone else on the other side of the earth?
Of course.
Everybody?
Everybody is connected. You know, right now there's so much killing that we're not really shocked by it anymore. But we all have a feeling this should stop. We don't want this. It's too unsafe. So let's the killing happen in Israel. That's far away. That's better. When we're in Holland, you know, Israel, the barbarians, they start a war again. And why is the thinking there? It's horrible. We don't want it. We say, okay, it's better not. But it's always better when it's far away. It's the same reaction. Nobody wants this. You understand? There is a level of interbeing, you can have different reactions. But even for Zichron, when the killing is, you know, in Tel Aviv, it's far away. Happily, this didn't happen in Zichron. If it happens in Zichron, happily it didn't happen in my neighborhood. Givat Eden is no killing. If it's in Givat Eden, happily it didn't happen to me and my neighbors. You see how we put separation after separation, it comes smaller and smaller and smaller the more unsafe it becomes. But the reality is that we're reactive. It happened to one of us. And it's influencing all of us. The closer it happens, the smaller our world becomes. You recognize that? So if I have a strong feeling towards Nimrod, that Nimrod is the most successful student of us. And I treat him like this, Nimrod. If you just feel what is the impact on you, you react to it if you like or not. One side you want to be that, but when it's spoken out, it's horrific. Isn't it, Libby? Because it's like how we influence each other on the level of interbeing. We kind of send out an expectation, and subconscious we have the feeling that we have to live this expectation.
It really, what part of the process is an understanding of the programming of the mind, which is quite deep, and we're quite deeply programmed to dictate separation on the level of being. I'll give a really simple example. Sally really, really, really hates Jane. Yeah. This is girl Jane and another girl Sally, and Sally really hates her. So we are programmed immediately to see here the victim as Jane.
Sally is a car.
And Jane is a Porsche.
Erase image of no one's sex life. So Sally is really, really hating Jane, and we are programmed to see Jane either she's guilty, deserves to be hated, or she's a victim because she's getting this hatred. But actually it could be that Jane doesn't give a toss or doesn't know that Sally hates her at all. So who is really suffering here? If you take it off the people, Sally and Jane, take them away. Who is deeply in hatred? And how does that feel?
Sally.
Totally. Sally is in the incredible suffering of hatred.
Her problem.
Our problem. There is an incredible suffering of hatred. It's also Jane's problem. Because Jane probably is a caretaker.
Is it what?
A caretaker. She doesn't want suffering. So when somebody is incredibly hating you, what they're doing is sharing the suffering of hatred. This suffering. And if for you, you're in a state of, Jane is in a state of love and openness, and this freeze of hatred comes towards her. This is totally intolerable. So if she's free, she suffers it and expands through the love. And doesn't go too near Jane, but it doesn't make any difference. It comes at nights, it comes in the mornings, it's the hatred is there. So no, it's no longer about Sally and Jane. There is this whole vibration of suffering called hatred. Incredibly nasty, frozen love vibrating among us. And then we open Facebook and we see somebody in Syria getting his head chopped off by ISIS.
He's getting what?
Getting his head chopped off by ISIS. And we say, remember, it all started with Sally. Sally's suffering, hatred. We say, this is outrageous. This is evil. This is the hatred over there. So we take this same energy, which never had a label in the first place. It was just suffering. And we say, we put it on that image. And we start to move together in our consciousness in a campaign. And in the end, our leaders send in bombs and smash half the innocent civilians of Syria in an attempt to get these few people who are responsible for all the hatred and cruelty on the planet. This is interbeing. This is really the kind of insanity we move through collectively, and nobody's really in control. And the first programming there is that the hatred can be thrown like this on somebody else. And that's the victim. There's two of them. There's a separation.
What Jane should do when it happens to her?
If she is in, if there's the possibility to communicate, she should ask Sally what's going on. Really, what's going on? What's happening?
Remove her head.
If Sally is so caught in the suffering, she's not ready to talk through it. But anyway, Jane is responding. She's feeling this suffering. It's like je. She can only stay lovingly present to it. Lovingly present to it. Just to be with it lovingly. To be aware of it. Let it be. Not build stories. Not
Their
react.
hatred.
Let it be.
Love the hatred?
To be present with a suffering. Doesn't matter now if it's Sally's or Jane's. Let's say Jane is now suffering the same hatred. She's also suffering the same vibration of cruelty. So what do we do when we're suffering, when suffering comes forward? So what we often do is we identify. And we build a story, and our partner comes and says, what's it about? Who's doing this? What's happening? But what we can do also is not build any story. Not even, it doesn't matter a shit if this suffering is mine or the others, or from here or from there. Totally irrelevant. And be present for the suffering, like we would be towards any animal which was suffering, or towards somebody that was dying, or towards somebody who was crying. We stay open in feeling and surround it with a feeling of safety and love. We stay with it. We stay with it and hold it for as long as needed.
If you look at hatred...
This is the essence of healing.
Yeah, if you look at hatred, hatred is born from the suffering of separation, or the illusion of separation. It's frozen love. As love unifies, hatred always divides. It's kind of really a deep pain of not finding the unity which would make life more safe for you, or in which you would be more one, or whatever. How we live normally, I try to explain a little bit in a different way what Georgi brings forward. How we live normally is somebody gets angry, and either we deny the anger, or we get angry and we make a story about it, or we ask the person for the story, or whatever. But what we seldomly do is acknowledge with our awareness, our consciousness, perception to emptiness, the anger, just as it is. There is anger in Yair. If we're able to acknowledge the anger, there is anger in Yair, this is an act of healing. Towards yourself, towards another. There is anger in Bart. Acknowledge the anger, it's there. It's allowed to exist. It's allowed to move in its own way. Healing will come forward. And anger is another example. If you're really pissed off with me, and you come to me and you say, listen Bart, I really am pissed off with you. I cannot bear the sight of you. And I ask, why not? What's happening? And you start to tell. The moment that you start to tell, and you have the impression that I'm acknowledging what you're saying. I'm acknowledging the anger that has a right to exist. I'm acknowledging that you are hurt, that has a right to exist. It starts to heal. So that we are in a state of interbeing, that we all influence each other, is absolutely not a problem. The problem in the whole level of interbeing is when we start to reject parts of ourselves and parts of us. When we start to make artificial separations, ruptures. This is where it really starts to hurt, where it goes wrong. We are one, but we are not the same. This is a very beautiful sentence. So if we have to be one, and we have to be the same, you understand? This is where it goes wrong. So in this movement from the depth of emptiness and unity, kind of moving into form, into being, then there could be an awakening that you see that the form which is coming forward is not separate from the environment. It's a form which is in an interplay. It's a form which is basically of service to the need of the environment. The more we make this form separate, unique, superior, inferior, whatever we kind of move with it, as a background of fear or pain, the more the form becomes dysfunctional. the more the form is out of tune. The less we have a feeling of togetherness. We have a feeling that it's the right person in the right moment, in the right place. The more that we have a feeling that life is flowing through our fingers. The more we maybe have a feeling of worthlessness, uselessness of life. Of being. We don't have this feeling when we naturally are in an authentic movement, in an interaction with the world, in whatever way. It's when we are not able to interact, when we are out of tune, when this is coming forward. You recognize what I'm talking about? So we're living right now in a country, in a world, with a lot of musical instruments which are quite out of tune. So when we make music together, it's really it's not very attuned. And at the same time, we all reactive to each other, but we're not aware of it. But we all screaming it all the time. It's because of this ISIS, or it's because of this, or it's because of my neighbor, it's because of my mother-in-law. And that's true, but anyhow. Bullshit. Because I didn't wash my hands this morning. Because of. It's stories. So what we do is that we build stories. But even these stories are not individual. The stories are based on collective craziness. We believe each other if we say because of. We walk after it. I'm deeply sad because of Ariella this morning said this to me. Did she say this to you? I wouldn't take it if I was you. No wife should say that to her husband. We're feeding each other. Enlarging, dumping. This is all interbeing. And we think that we're separate individuals. I'll stop about it because it becomes a whole negative kind of...
Let me turn it to the positive.
Yeah, exactly. I said I stop, not we stop.
You can't leave it like this.
No, we cannot leave it like this. But it becomes a whole negative picture. There is a very beautiful positive picture in it as well. But if we like it or not, we are every moment of the day influenced by each other's thoughts, each other's ideas, each other's emotions. You're in the house and you're happy and your husband comes in with a dark cloud. So what's happening to you? Immediately you become a dark cloud as well. It's because of him. Okay, I'll leave it to the more positive person in this room.
How about when you experience an emotion, like one of the emotions you were talking about before, you said that it's better to express it in order to let it be.
Yeah, or to acknowledge it.
To acknowledge it.
That's enough.
So you experience some emotion, but then there has to be a reason for this emotion. For example, you experience some kind of anger,
Yeah,
but in the very depth, it's related to fears.
maybe.
So, if you express it, there is some healing process happening, but you don't get to the core.
No. So, Georgie?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So when you look to it, this is a whole cycle. It's a process. And if you can acknowledge the anger, then at a certain moment the anger will release. You don't even need to express it. Acknowledging is enough. And then what is underneath the anger will come forward.
Right.
If you acknowledge this, it's about acknowledgement. The healing is in the acknowledgement. It's allowed to exist.
Right.
allowed to be there. It is what it is. And we can do this towards each other. But often what we do is the opposite. You say, I'm very angry. I ask you, why? You said, no, because he did this and this and this and this and this. And I said, the bastard. How could he do this to you? It looks like I'm acknowledging your anger, but basically what I'm doing together with you is kind of enlarge the anger in relationship with the other person.
Right, and if this has nothing to do with the environment, like I'm angry because I failed my exam.
Yeah.
So this is a pain of fear of failing.
Maybe. So, but I could do exactly the same. I say, it's very stupid to be angry. You can use this anger to study harder.
Yeah, but once you said it's very stupid to be angry, you disacknowledge, you don't acknowledge the anger.
Exactly.
I acknowledge the anger, but I give it a direction. Again, I give it a direction.
You say it's not allowed.
Yeah, you just
In
said.
this manner. Yeah.
You rejected his anger.
Exactly. Like you're just not letting it be.
I said, it's very stupid to be angry. Just work harder. Use your anger to work harder, to study harder. So I'm acknowledging and not acknowledging the anger. You see the doubleness? So that's often how we move with it.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
next
just
time.
now to choose the word. You say, okay.
Yeah, but really, we're confusing now the whole field of social codes and contracts and interactions and therapy and relating with interbeing.
Yeah.
And on the level of interbeing,
Yeah.
the moment we confuse the social contracts and all of this, we're moving into the whole thought patterns and the mind and explanations and reasons. And even if you get to the core reason that your father kind of kept kicking you when you were little as being the cause, it's not going to help with the anger. The anger there still is anger among us. There is still anger. And nobody wants it.
So people are pushing it between them.
This is very clear. I was more interested in how healing aspect.
So the healing aspect, really the healing aspect is pre-session work. It's really pre-session work. It's work you do on yourself before you come into the social field. And of course it's a process of in and out, but the key in it is to completely let go of the identification of you as a person. It's not your anger, it was never your anger. It's just anger. It's not caused. It's really not caused. It's a pool of anger, which is especially there because nobody allows it to be a pool of anger. The moment you say, this is my anger, I'm angry, you are creating a separation. I have experienced the most incredible, horrific emotions, which, having been totally shanti and peaceful and in stillness, suddenly comes incredible emotions without any logical connection to any process in me. It doesn't matter if it's mine, or if it's from the general field, or if it's because somebody's killing his wife in the next neighborhood. It really doesn't matter. It is here, in me, and I am responsible. Whether it's my mother or whether it's a mother in Africa, I am responding. It's here. It's what is here now.
Yeah, this is why I'm so interested in the healing process, because once you solve it with yourself, you won't be as influenced.
So the
by
first
the
step,
collective.
release the belief of separation, which we've already realized in emptiness. Right now, this is here happening, in me or in the other. It's here. It's here. Doesn't matter if it's mine or yours or who's the cause, who's the effect. It doesn't matter. It's here. Whatever's here, there's no way around what's here. You can't twist it.
It seems like the anger for me failing an exam wouldn't be the same anger for being raped. There's anger and there's anger. So you're saying the anger needs to be treated from the same place.
I'm saying that
And
anger
released from the same-
itself, it could just as equally be called suffering. Just call it suffering. Call it energy. Call it pain. Released even from the word. This is the healing movement. Release it even from the story. Feel it. Feel what's there. And, anger is a great big word to describe unlimited amounts of feelings. No moment of anger is the same as the next. Doesn't matter what happened that broke out this anger. It's never the same. Every particle of this anger is from the great big pool of anger and pain. Every particle is part of the whole. If you allow one particle, just one particle of that anger to come home, to be, it releases, you are affecting the whole pool on a knock-on effect across the universe, and this is already physics. I tell you why.
Connecting to your dark side.
There's a direct connection between stress, anger, suffering, pain. This is all stress, and health, and well-being. Direct connection. Yes? You get physically ill, you get cancer, you get sick, you get autoimmune disease from anger. Okay? Anger is here, doesn't matter if it's yours or the others or what caused it. Anger is here. You take a part of this stress and you release it into peace, because the thing which is able to experience it is more. This stress is entangled with millions of other particles of stress. All of those particles of stress in the whole pool gets the signal. You can release. There's a relaxation reverberating across the universe from that. And this is really not hocus pocus. This is physics. This is quantum entanglement. You take one particle, you change it, that it has been connected to this particle is on the other side of the world in New Zealand. You change something in this particle, that particle changes too. But that particle has also been entangled with other particles. It spreads. This is remote healing, even. But it's coming from a place which is so unconditional. And the precondition of it, none of it is possible if you believe that this anger says anything about you, that it's bigger than you, that it's who you are, that it's yours, that it forms you. Yeah. Let's say you move into a room and nobody likes you. Nobody wants you there. They make it completely clear they do not want Libby here. And it's there in a million signals. You're not imagining it, this is happening. For whatever reason, she's Jewish. Whatever reason, doesn't matter the reason. We like to have a reason because that means we can contain it and maybe get rid of this horrible suffering, but what you've got is a resonating experience of rejection, of isolation. Very strong from many particles at once. Rejection, 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 rejection. You couldn't even pick out the individual in the room that started it. You can try, but it's not going to help. Because anyway, you've got this resonating experience of pain and rejection and separation. So what have you got in that moment? You've got maybe the root of suffering itself, the illusion of separation, of rejection, happening inside you as a healing opportunity. If you can create the space and be present to allowing yourself to be crucified, to feel even 1 inch of that, you're serving the whole pool. If you push it away, the critical pool of rejected particles, like a big cancer, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So in a way, we should be inviting it. Also, people go to Africa to save, to go to the heart of suffering, to the heart of the Ebola crisis, ready to die in it. Why? Why would they do that?
Very few people do that.
A lot of people are volunteering to do that. And they have to sign a paper saying they will carry the financial responsibility of bringing their corpse back in order to do that. And they sign it.
Didn't understand what you said.
Why are we attracted to the suffering inside ourselves? Why are we attracted to the places inside ourselves where we suffer? Are we kind of sick? Are we built like that? That we want more suffering? We're attracted to suffering because it's like love calling itself back.
But
it's attractive, it magnetizes us because we are healers. because we are in interbeing, because we want the unity. I'm not talking about the social field, I'm talking about between ourselves and ourselves. We want to interbe with ourselves. We need that.
But Georgi, sometimes you meet someone that is very angry or very painful, that you cannot bear it. I mean, so it's impossible for me to react. I have to take distance.
Yeah, so you take distance, and you go and you separate yourself, which is the physical border, which is totally right, but the pain which you couldn't bear has come with you into the other room.
So the difficulty is that automatically, in all the questions, what I'm doing now, what Georgi did before, kind of to make clear that we have this pool of anger. And the moment we move into form, what's happening is that it becomes psychology. We give reasons for it. We give situations. We give, what comes forward is the conflict if you're allowed to be angry or not. To be angry is very bad, because, according to Noam, because then we really kind of, we see the devil. I'm just exaggerating a little bit, but we all have our kind of relationship as individuals with an emotion and how we give form, all reasons. But basically what is brought forward is that anger is just a pool of anger. And sometimes it pops up in you, and sometimes it pops up somewhere else. And in this whole coming to form, the difficulty we have with anger, the difficulty we have with fear, the difficulty we have with love, the difficulty we have with bliss, the difficulty we have with all different forms of life, the struggle we have makes us find the reasons why and to place it somewhere. And all kind of reasons not to really allow it, acknowledge it, allow it. So the healing fact always is connected with allowance. We cannot heal something away. We can only heal in a way that it integrates. To allow, allowance. The reason for anger is not important. It's irrational, because anger is irrational. So the anger because you are raped is nothing compared by the anger when your daughter gets raped. We can make it worse. So this anger because somebody else gets raped has more right to exist as the anger of the victim itself. This is all bullshit from the mind. We can turn it around, we can make stories around it. This is not what's important. What's important is that it really brings forward a lot of anger in you. And if we can allow this anger, if it's reasonable, rational or not rational, because we can always find a reason why it's not right. We just need to acknowledge it. So if you come because you're in a rage and the people around you say, why would you be angry about that, I thought you were a spiritual, peaceful person. And you come to a session to somebody and he says, I totally understand that you're angry. Acknowledge your anger. That's enough. Inside yourself, outside yourself. That's basically what we try to tell.
In the allowing of anger and the self-allowing of anger and of pain and of suffering, parts of ourselves get broken down, go into the fire. Like anger burns out form. So in a way you need to kind of experiment with it a little bit, because something is never destroyed, something is purified. Often, for example with rejection, we're feeling pain because there's a resistance to let it go straight through and out the other side. We're not empty at all. There's a false self there, which has to be accepted, first condition, has to be seen, see me, has to be appreciated. Or else, comes this rejection, and sometimes it can play out without any rejection from anybody. You ask the group of people, are you rejecting? No, I wasn't rejecting, but it's playing out anyway. So what's happening? Something is burning in identification and attachment. The attachment to the person we want to be. The person, the form we decided we have to have, the form we need to have, a form that is seen. But this form, this person, and this is the process of self-realization, realizing we don't need it. It's an illusion. It can burn down, and something else is there, immediately, finer, also a false form. It can burn down. Something even finer, almost more alive, more shining, is there. It can go on forever, the burning, until there's no need for a form at all anymore. And still you have a form, look, form. Still here. So in a way, suffering itself is a kind of service. Doesn't mean we have to kind of let ourselves be kind of ravaged, because it's a delicate balance with the nervous system and stages of releasing illusion and adjusting beliefs and shedding layers of ego we never knew we had. Yeah. It's an ongoing process of self-realization, and it's worthwhile. It's really, really worthwhile. It's followed after that by an incredible spaciousness and relief. It's an incredible relief to let go of a self. Because we never really believed it anyway. It was always too heavy. This self that got rejected. So what could be rejected but something which is not ultimately real? You know, let's say you really, really, really don't like me. What do I do with that? So I don't believe in me either. Don't like me either. Get out. Let the person get out the way already. Let me see me in you. Who cares like, dislike? Who cares? Let the person get out the way. You know, Eckhart Tolle spoke and he said, people asked him, because he was this nervous wreck bombing through London, and he had this awakening. And then he had this whole issue of coming into form. You know, and he looks like shit, you know, with his waistcoat and he speaks really, you know. For sure he was rejected all over the place. Nobody liked him, nobody wanted him. And they asked him recently, what's happening? What happened? How did you do that? You know, he's like king of spirituality now. I don't know how he survives that, but he said, I just let the person get out the way. This is what I do. Every time I get the chance, I get out of the way of the person. I get out of the way of myself. It's like a constant movement. Offers coming, you know, and he's like, oh, get the persons out of the way, you know, because the need to be for real is so much stronger. There's so much suffering in being a person, which in a way is a compilation of social approval and rejection and bank balance and, you know, why has he bought a new car now then if he's so holy and all of this shit. How could you even identify with it anymore? The social field. We don't need this thing which could be rejected.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
How do you find the balance? Because it sounds to me like it could be a trap. Okay, I allow it, crucify me, let me be your lightning rod of hate. How can you find the balance of not letting people abuse you or because it can be confusing if I'm allowing, where do I take the border or how do I do it?
Most victims of abuse stay inside an abusive relationship because they don't allow the experience to really come in. They don't allow the hatred, they don't allow the pain, they don't allow the pure cruelty of what's happening to their form. And so they hide it, they put makeup on. They say to themselves, he really loves me anyway, he's just got a problem, I have to help him with it. I take the most extreme example of abuse. If you really, really allow even the most simple pain of rejection, if you really let it come in, you won't be able to tolerate the form anymore. You will naturally move out.